Hey guys, Shadefire here, and welcome to episode 3 and level 3 of Let's Play Jurassic Park Trespasser. This is the industrial jungle, and instead of following the monorail this level, our main path is to follow the dried out riverbed that we're standing in right now. Oddly, the end of this level does not connect to the end of the last level doesn't connect to the beginning of this level, unlike the first and second level. On the map of the island that there's actually a space between these that's just missing, possibly a level that was never added in.
I stumbled out of the helicopter already beginning to sweat and looked around at the lush forest, the wet leaves.
So this right here is the M14. It does a little bit less damage than the Browning High Power, but has double the capacity. It's a pretty good gun to have. Now, the industrial jungle is a pretty long level, too.
The first task was genetic recovery. Acquiring Jurassic or Cretaceous amber, extracting preserved DNA, and reassembling the complete sequences. Bringing it up the well, we called it.
But that's mostly because it's a really long, like physically long path, as opposed to some of the tighter but wider levels.
Hasn't been used.
Tribe A up ahead. We've also got M93R here. This is a shitty burst pistol. I am not a fan of any of these.
Move more data faster than any computer center in the Americas.
Not a fan of any of the burst weapons, really. This one's only got about 6 or 7 bursts in it.
About half a clip.
Yeah, we just went through half of it on one raptor.
Feels about half.
In 11 months, Site B became the most powerful genetics facility in the world.
Whatever.
Good thing we weren't standing under there. Both you and dinosaurs can be crushed by falling physics objects.
About 20.
Almost shot myself again. I need to not be standing here.
Ow!
I'm almost dead. Come on.
About 20.
That was almost a bad situation. Oh, and I got stuck on an invisible wall that tried to take
About
my gun
20.
away. There are quite a few invisible walls in this
Looks
game.
like 20.
Though a lot of them aren't invisible walls so much as there used to be an object there, possibly a
Looks
rock
like 20.
or a tree, that's no longer there. Yeah, the raptor. Get out of here, you. Oh, I fell in again. This is turning out poorly.
15. 13.
Whew. That could have gone much better. And we're slowly healing up.
In a quiet, locked room, the extinction of species, the history of life on Earth, is being methodically reversed.
I hear another raptor stumping around. You might notice that he is pretty passive about us standing here. I mentioned earlier that to avoid the violent mood swings, they cranked all the emotions up to just anger and hunger being maxed out with everything else being 0. However, for some reason, they forgot this one poor guy. So he has no emotions set to full, and we'll just walk around doing nothing. An oversight on their part, I think, more than an intentional choice. I'm gonna
Looks
try
like
to
12.
toss that rock at that raptor.
10.
That went much better than our last encounter.
The hunters landed on May 13th, 1997, deep in the island's southwest. Most of them had worked at my African parks for years. They never stood a chance.
This here is the Heckler & Koch G3A3. It's almost identical statistically to the M14, but I find it's a little easier to aim with that little circular sight.
8 left.
I spared no expense, permitted no failures.
Try to drop in on us and surprise us. Now you can't really climb these side paths too effectively. Oh, there's a tribe bee. 2 tribe bees. Nope.
By 1983, we held 13 new patents.
I was in high school then. 1. Empty. Looks like 20.
Alright, that one's wandering off, so we can take care of this guy.
17. 15. 13.
Well, that's unfortunate. Now we could climb up there, but most of that is a slope that will just push you back down, so there's not much point. I'm not quite sure why there's no monorail at all in this level. You think at least the foundations would have reached all the way to the town, but I guess they stopped halfway before evacuating.
Looks like 12.
See if we can sneak past this guy without him hopping on our head.
November 1983.
Doesn't look like it.
Test fertilization of an artificial ovum. My hand shook as I held the tiny eye drop. 1 drop. 2 drops. There. The genie was out of the bottle. The raptor took shape inside its egg and I watched it on the ultrasound monitor. It looked like a ghost or a puff of smoke.
5.
What a handily placed destroyed jeep. Well, it was handily placed until it started completely blocking our path.
About a dozen.
Throw that over there. So you can get past this without getting crushed. Or stuck in the wall. Squeeze on by.
About a dozen.
Ah, what's this? No thanks required. The pleasure was all ours. By Steven Spielberg and his son Max Spielberg. That's a little Easter egg in there. That supposedly those 2 left in there for you. Though it's likely that Spielberg probably didn't have too much
I began
involved
to
in the
have my
project.
first inkling of the seriousness of our work. How deep the well was. This was life from 65 or 100 million years before mankind.
I've really done it. This is not a normal situation.
And there's a new dinosaur. The T-Rex is very dangerous, as you can probably guess.
They reigned for 25 million years. We grew seven of them, the 7 rulers of the island.
Now, luckily, we shouldn't have to go too far to avoid him. Oh, shit.
And despite what we've been led to believe, the T-Rex was not a scavenger at all. We clocked one at 50 kilometers an hour.
Now, it's impossible to take down a T-Rex. Well, mostly impossible to take one down with guns. However, the way they're scripted, to prevent them from getting stuck in places they shouldn't be, they're actually programmed to a specific location, or, in some cases, a specific dinosaur that they won't get too far away from. So we don't have to worry about him following us all the way. You can actually sometimes manipulate this in some weird ways, since when they're tied to specific dinosaurs, killing that dinosaur and then using infinite ammo and any automatic weapon to push the corpse along will actually cause the T-Rex to follow the body. And you can get into places it shouldn't be. Over here we've got a nice little waterfall, though oddly Anne doesn't have anything to say about it. Another big old parasaur.
Hasn't been used. About a dozen.
Now this little volcanic-looking gorge area is filled with raptors. I'm stuck on the ground. There we go.
Hasn't been used. About half a clip. Almost gone. About a dozen. 10, 9.
I went through that entire gun without killing one raptor. And I didn't even miss. Anne's not much of a drummer.
8. 6. 4. 3. 1.
Now, there's actually another gun up here, but it's poorly placed, so it's jammed into the ground. And the slippery slopes here can actually make it difficult to pop it out. But we're gonna need it if we can get past this raptor. Oh, darn. We may not have the opportunity. Unless I can pull off a headshot with this last bullet. Come on. Nope. Well, forget it. We're just gonna make a run for it. Or hop for it as the necessity comes. Looks like we lost him. Raptors can usually follow you a decent distance, but they're not great with corners. Now this area is not a great place to be with no guns. You can see there's a trio of raptors down there. Just waiting for us to fall. Which is very likely because you kind of slide if you're trying to walk up this area. Here, you can either try to drop down without dying, or try to jump up here. Either way, you're kind of in for a spot of trouble. Okay, I'm going to try to slide down here without falling to death. And then book it past these two raptors. This is a bad idea. Now, if you take a look at the side of this helicopter, you can see it says Biosyn on it. In the Jurassic Park novels, Biosyn is a competing company of InGens that tries to steal the technology, and they're the ones that hired Dennis Nedry in the first Jurassic Park movie to steal the embryos before he's killed. It's kind of weird with the Jurassic Park games that they use a crossover of both the novels and the movie for their background fiction. For example, in the book, in the very first Jurassic Park book, John Hammond dies at the end. However, in the movie he obviously doesn't, as he is in the beginning of the second movie as well. And so having sort of a crossover fiction in the games seems a little weird, as opposed to just picking one or the other. So up here we've got a handy dandy AK-47. It's got a 60 round clip, or 40 rounds I believe actually. No, 60. And does a lot of damage, but isn't too accurate. Still, it's a great gun to have on you. And it looks like we've managed to slip past all those raptors.
Feels full.
Since they're going to have as much trouble as we do traveling up those slopes. And the jumping is only triggered as an attack, they can't use it to traverse difficult terrain. It's areas like this that make me think the Trespasser really just suffered from being a little too early for its time. the ambitious things they tried, just like these big areas and all that, were just a little bit too much for the available technology of the time. If this game had been made a couple years after when it was, it probably would have been pretty great. There was actually another attempted Jurassic Park survival horror game for the PS2. However, the project was scrapped before it was completed. It looked a bit more like something like Dino Crisis or Resident Evil than like this, but that would have been interesting too. You can see those raptors actually managed to follow me all the way up here. Surprising. It also looks like a raptor fell off of up here where there was supposed to be one waiting for us.
Full clip.
Go on now. Silly thing. I think inherently the idea of a game where you're just supposed to survive on one of the 2 Jurassic Park islands is very interesting in concept. But without the proper technology to support it, it wouldn't work out anytime. I can see why they wouldn't have tried it again after the commercial failure of Trespasser, but I'm surprised that they didn't try something similar, considering they tried to franchise the hell out of the series around the time of Jurassic Park 3. Though with the mingled critical response to Jurassic Park 3, I can see perhaps why they stopped after that.
Full clip.
Still hear that other one down there. This area right here is a little unusual. It appears to be made out of natural materials, but at the same time, very unnatural in design, because it basically looks like a bunch of steps. But unless they're carved into the actual rock, I don't see how they're natural steps. They're a little difficult to climb too, because they're a little taller than your jump. So you have to kind of fandangle the edges to help you up. However, getting a little bit of a running start usually helps. And with what would be a very nice view if there was a much better draw distance, our only option is to jump. Goodbye, cruel dinosaur world. That almost killed us because I didn't jump close enough to the edge to hit the deep part, and so I hit the bottom. Luckily, it didn't. Now down here we have not a tyrannosaur, but actually a slightly smaller but similar dinosaur, the Albertosaur. Unlike the Tyrannosaur, the Albertosaur can actually be killed, and he's got windowless now. And we have the perfect tool to do that right here with the M2 the Browning M2.
It's half gone.
Now, these guns hold 200 rounds in them. However, for some reason, every one of these you find in the game is half empty. Oh, shit. He figured out a clever way to avoid our gun.
About half a clip.
This is bad and doesn't usually happen. Okay. Now my assumption is that the reason these are all empty is supposed to represent
It's half gone.
them being used to ward off dinosaurs during the evacuation. Alright. Now this thing is just as hard to aim as the sniper rifle was, except for the fact that it's automatic, so you can just kind of fire wildly. There we go.
Feels about half.
See, right in there, if we get too close, we'll actually start taking damage from his mouth pad. So I'm gonna stay away. There was a gun here, but I don't know where it went. Oh, there it is. We've got the unsilenced version of the
Feels
MP5.
full.
This gun's still not very good, but it's better than nothing. Oh no, this is the silenced version. I could have sworn this was the non. This raptor was trampled to death by the Albertosaur. Now you can see here we've got the driver riverbed that we were following earlier. However, we've also got power lines to follow now because we're nearing the end of the level and getting close to the town. Oddly, the lock on this shack is all the way over here, supposedly because the shack was originally positioned over here, and they forgot to move the lock with the shack. You can tell this game didn't have a lot of time for bug testing what they did have finished.
Gone.
And here we've got an Ingram Mac-10.
Hasn't been used.
The Mac-10 is also pretty terrible. It's not very accurate, doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does have a pretty big clip for its size. It'll do if you have nothing else available. You can see that one tribe bee over there. Not sure if he's gonna come after us or not. Looks like he is. But I'll wait till he's a little closer to start firing because we don't have any accurate weapons right now.
The jungle canopy hung over us. There was an utter silence. Far away I could hear a Jeep engine idling.
Feels about half. Nearly empty. Almost out.
Good riddance. Like, even this area would look a lot better if it had been more heavily populated with trees, so it would actually look more like a jungle than just a valley. And perhaps more dinosaurs as well. Of course, that would have crapped out computers even more than this game already did at the time. And I don't know if you can just get a glimpse of it over that hill there, but there's got something rather neat over here.
We were neither the only covert business to thrive in Central America nor the most dangerous.
Now this here is the smuggler's plane. Originally there was parcels of drugs and crates labeled Bogota, the capital of Central America, capital of Colombia. lying around here, but then the developers decided to remove it. Possibly for ESRB reasons. You can see the pilot didn't even so much make it out of the plane. However, we do have this. Now this is the drum magazine version of the AK-47. It carries 100 shots instead of 60.
Feels about half.
And has a little bit more recoil, presumably because of the drum, though you think that'd actually weigh it down a little bit more.
Feels about half.
We released the first Raptor on April 22nd, 1985. It wandered back and forth near the wall for 4 minutes and 22 seconds before hearing a noise, which drew it further off into the brush. By 1987, the first of them had reached full size. The ecosystem of another era began to reassert itself.
And here we can see up ahead the...
In the jungle, the forest, and the mountain, 3 raptor tribes staked out territory. Albertosaurs and 7 T-Rex chose their dominions. Uneasy borders drawn around forest, ridges, and ponds.
Up ahead you can see the wall that is on the outskirts of Burroughs, the town. Which means we are coming to the end of this level.
Not all the original species survived. In the end, only a few adjusted to the new world. These became...
That's it. Feels full.
And because this is the end of the level, we can be pretty judicious with our ammunition. Come here, you.
Feels about half. Showers, coffee, air conditioning. Almost there.
I think Anne is expecting perhaps a little too much out of the town, considering no one's been on this island for years. In retrospect, that was perhaps a poor idea, as we need that lift to get over the fence. That almost killed us. Well, don't I feel silly now? Alright, let's try that again, I guess. Now, that was a silly mistake for me to make. However, I didn't actually know this crane was a physics object. Assumed it wouldn't be if it's necessary to reach the other level.
About half a clip.
You can see there's the proper wall of the town over there, which we'll be seeing in the next level. The town is probably one of the most interesting levels of the game, at least in the way it's laid out, and I hope you will join me for it. I've been Shadefire, and this was the Industrial Jungle. See you all next time. Now Now the first Easter egg we've got here, right at the beginning of the level, is this motorcycle. Just kind of lying up there where you can't really get it without some creative jumping. Supposedly, people thought this was the motorcycle belonging to Sarah Harding in the book The Lost World. However, there are supposed to be more of these in the game, so that there was only supposed to be one of these in the book, so they kind of contradict. Kind of neat looking. Would have been nice if there was some use for it in game, other than pushing it around. Now down here in the basement of this level, you can see we've got here a Jeep design that we don't actually see in game at any point, and another version of it here, which is the one with the extendable seat, as you can see there, used by Dieter in the Lost World movie. It would have been in there as just another reference. Also, considering it, I think the basement is actually here as a sort of mapper's resource. By dumping all of this stuff in the outside regions of a level, the developers can just then grab these assets, copy them, and paste them somewhere in the level. Kind of a poor optimization to leave all this in here, but I understand where they were going from. Anyhow, that's the unused Jeeps. This right here is just an unused music cue. It was supposed to play as you travel through this riverbed from the beginning of the level. However, it's placed on top of this rock where you can't actually reach normally, because they placed it a little too high up. There are actually a number of scripted voice triggers in the game that have this problem of being placed too high for the player to actually reach. So you can definitely tell they didn't go through and check all those afterwards. And the last, and perhaps most significant of the Easter eggs in this level, is this, the Black Monolith. I'm sure you can recognize a certain sci-fi movie that this might be a reference to. If not, here's an even more overt reference. Of course, the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Kind of a bizarre thing to add in as an Easter egg, especially because you can actually see it from inside the level. Makes a neat noise when you shoot it.
Empty.
And that's the end of Easter eggs for this level of Trespasser. See you next time.